everybody does. But I've always had a deep admiration for these people because I'm like, these are the kind of people that are doing the same thing day in, day out. And if you tell me yourself, you're going to have to wait off nearly 2 years till you're going to step on stage. Like, they got their lives planned out and they've got that meaning from such a young age as well. So when it's like judged from the outside public, I'm like, I don't think you fully understand what they grasp the concept, because there's so much more that goes into what you see on stage. It's actually much more than just... You know, it's everything else that revolves around that lifestyle. That I think is the best thing. Because
I think it's, sorry to interject there. Like, I think for a lot of people, they often find that their family finds it hard, and they'll like be like, it's hard for their family to understand. Yeah. One of the most satisfying things for me was, you know, obviously after like the previous preps and it not amounting to anything, like not amounting to like me stepping on stage, right? I think probably it was a bit like hard for my parents to understand, especially. My parents are like extremely supportive people, but like that, I could tell that it was hard to understand, right? Like it was, you get the normal gen pop questions like of less like, why can't you eat this, et cetera, which like you can't blame anyone for, like they don't know, right? And I think for them to actually see it all on the day and like come like actually to the show and stuff, it was kind of like, you could see, like, they didn't have to say anything, but it was like, they get it now. They understand. And that was like, I think that was a huge win for the day for me. Like, I was just like, that was just like nice to see, you know what I mean? Like, you could tell it was just like, I get it now. They didn't have to say anything, but it was like.
Did you have any point during your prep where you felt like, I know it's a weird thing to ask, but did you have any point, because you said you were becoming quite isolated, did you feel like, did you have a moment, I don't want to sound as a come across as negative, but do you have a moment of like questioning, like, oh shit, is this really what I want?
No.
Oh, so you were completely streamlined the whole time? Yeah. Did you ever have any, when you were cancelling?
I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing.
No, I think that's a fantastic thing. I think that's a really fantastic thing, because the people that I've spoken to, that when they come to me and then they I know it's again, this is where I get critical of bodybuilding. Okay, how I put the words right. I feel like some of them absolutely love to complain because they feel like it gives them some kind of a moralistic standpoint. Now, what I mean by that is, there was this. I remember I come across a couple of people, a guy and a girl in particular, and when they were on preparation, they love to tell you that they went on, and they love to tell you on their own prep, and they will pry it into whatever fucking conversation they can, like it's a crowbar into it, and they throw a grenade into the trench. And what I mean by that is, I will say something, and then they won't ask about it. They'll immediately turn to them and say, yeah, I can't do this because I'm on prep. And I was like...
You weren't asking, my guy.
I wasn't asking. But it's okay, so let's talk about that. And then they will talk about all the hardships they're going through. And then
it's a choice, man.
And then I say to myself all the time, then I say to them, do you really want... And then I got to a point where I was like, do you really want this?
Yeah.
Because... if you complain about it this much, it won't help you.
No.
And if you can't accept the things that you're going through on this situation...
that is a choice, again, by the way.
Yeah. So when I speak to fighters who are getting ready for their own fight, or I speak to grapplers, the ones who win, like not all the time, most of the time, are the ones who fall in love with the hardships.
Yeah, of course.
Like they're not complaining to me that they're missing they're missing, social events. I understand, like, people leave. They're not too mad that people are walking out of their lives because their purpose and their fulfillment is so aligned with who they are.
It's that whole sacrifice without regret thing, right? And it's like a lot of people are going to look back on it and go, well, was that the right thing to do? Like, are you going to look back on this one day and be like, oh, damn, I wish I did that? And I really struggle with that, because I also think that a lot of these people that are doing really great things in their lives, like that comes with it. Like, it's a whole part of it. You know what I mean? Like, they might regret it. Like, who knows? But at this moment in time, this is what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, do I want to go out now? Like, I love summer, right? Like, do I want to go out and go to all these festivals now? Probably not. Like, I might go to one or two. I probably won't drink. I just want to go be social. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any interest in that because it doesn't align to my goals. You know what I mean? I have time for that at some point in my life if I choose to do so. At this point in time, this is what I'm choosing to do with my life because I feel like this is going to get me to where I want to be. That's the most important thing to me. But it's, like I said, it's sacrifice without regret. Like, I don't think I'm going to regret all this because it's brought me so many different things, you know, and it's going to teach me so many different things as much as it already has that I'm going to take into other areas of my life. That's the important thing.
I fucking love that. That's amazing, because there were times where people will just like they miss something and then they're so centered on that missing. I'm like, look, you don't have to do this. No. Like you got to understand. You got to ask yourself that question all the time. You don't have to do this, but then at the same time, you really have to. The most humble people I've spoken to is they live by the life that no one really cares.
Yeah.
It's such a harsh and bitter truth bitter pill to swallow. But when you understand that no one really cares, both success or failure, that means when you're free to do what you want and all that, you know.
It's the thing. It's just like, like no one gives a fuck. You know what I mean? No one gives a fuck that you're choosing to be hungry and you're choosing to put yourself through this. You're choosing to get up at 4 a.m. and do your cardio. You're choosing to do this. Like, no one gives a fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a choice that you're making. Own that choice. If you don't want to do it, again, no one gives a fuck. You know what I mean? It's all right. You know, like, you don't have to do these things.
Yeah. So now, if I got to ask real quick, because you're gonna wait like 2 years down the line. Does that at all give you some kind of like I got to be careful with the words. I'm not saying it's been a bother you, but does that like give you some kind of like thoughts about it, like where you I got to really wait this long, I got to endure this, like?
No, because
what's the attitude towards that?
I could go ahead and go, I'm going to compete next year, right?
Yeah.
But am I going to be as good as I need to be?
Okay. Do you reckon that idea could change then? Let's say, man, if you competed in, what month was it? October? October. So that's not even, it's just under a year away.
Yeah.
So let's just say if the opportunity presented itself, and let's say you want to be able to go 3 months out and you look fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe you could give it another crack next year?
No. No, I think the earliest...
I like that. Very in stone.
Yeah, I think the earliest that I would consider would be like April 2024.
Okay.
And then the latest with the one that I've, kind of said that it will be, the next one will be October. Because I'm just like, well, if I come back next year, I don't think I'm going to be good enough.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing. Like, I'm not going to have enough time in that off season to put on the amount of muscle that I need. Okay. Like I'm pretty like certain that, I want to try and come back as close to my weight cap as I possibly can. Whether I hit it or not, I don't know. Like I could not, but I want to come back to as close to that weight cap as I possibly can, because I'm going to be like much more confident in what I'm going to be able to do when the time comes of me being able to step on stage again. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So are we going to also maintain the same division we're doing right now?
Yeah, I'll stay in Classic for sure.
Stay in Classic.
Yeah.
Okay. So now the next thing I actually got to ask you is, I want to just step away from that. We're not far out from Olympia, by the way, if you've been tracking.
I know. Of course I have.
Yeah, okay. So give me some picks. Like, do you feel like, I heard someone say that this is turning into, do you feel like turning into all eyes on Classic right now? I feel like less people have kind of sort of paid attention now to the open bodybuilding since, Phil Heath has lost, Sean Roden's gone, Kai Green's definitely not coming back at all. It's quite...
Is he?
I would love it to, but I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah.
I think open bodybuilding and the freaks will always be...
here to stay.
I think so.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine it not, but I also don't see a lot of people wanting to look like that these days. There's not a lot of kids, that are coming up and getting into the gym and stuff. It's all sebum, right? Like,
yeah,
it's because he's obviously very mainstream now. So a lot of people just want to look like that, but you can't blame them for it. It's like a more aesthetically pleasing look, But I do think that open bodybuilding will always be the king. I think that will always be the pinnacle, you know what I mean? Because people are there to see the freaks, But yeah, I do think Classic will obviously continue to rise and probably be on par with it, But also, I do think it might die out a little bit when Chris decides to retire.
Really?
Of course, because he's the pinnacle of that. I don't think I shouldn't say that. Like, I don't think it's going to die, and I don't think people are going to stop doing it. But I also think a lot of the hype is because of that, right? Because of Chris being at the pinnacle right now. I think when he steps away, as interesting it will still be, like, don't get me wrong, I'm obviously still going to be ridiculously interested in it. Like, it's the division that I picked for myself. I think that people will still see that the freaks will still be, the open bodybuilding will still be the king.
Yeah. Well, that's a valid point, because I do believe that the best way to make bodybuilding more interesting is just personalities.
Yeah.
And
that's what draws eyes to that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So because when I actually looked up the lineup for the open bodybuilding, I've not paid as much attention to it over the last few years, so forgive me, I'm not the absolute diehard fan of it. But Big Ramy was the only one who I truly like recognized and had like a face to it.
Yeah.
Most of the other guys, I couldn't quite understand who they were.
A lot of them are quite popular, and there's definitely like some noise being made by a lot of them. But this Olympia for classic and I'd say for open mainly, but like to pick that top 15 is ridiculous. Like it's so hard. You know, you usually can place, you know, usually a top 5 are hard to pick, you know, and you're just like, it's probably a bit hard to pick, but you can kind of get a rough idea. But this year you have no idea, man. Like there's so many different guys in it. I think there's over like 30 people in the open division this year, which is crazy because obviously they don't place anyone after 16th place.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Everyone from 16th is 16th place. Everyone is last.
That's such a strange number to place them in 16th.
I think they should place everyone personally, or not place everyone, but I think everyone should have a number. I don't think it should just be 16 flat, but it's a lot of people to
16.
place.
That's not even half. That's just over half of it. So.
Yeah. So, but that's the same regardless of the amount of people went up. And then Classic, I think, has like 50 competitors or something.
50?
If not more, yeah.
Wow.
It's big, you know, and so like it's crazy. It's very, very crazy, yeah.
Does that ever like... Is that where you sort of feel like you would love to head one day, you know, down the line? Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you start young as well.
Yeah.
With that, like.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I sort of just wanted to like lead into, and hopefully this isn't something that I'm not pinching any nerves.
No.
But one of the things I've always deeply admired and love to talk about on this podcast is that with people who get into that, they start taking PEDs, and they start taking steroids and all that. First of all, I am a massive advocate for that sort of stuff. I'm a huge... Well, here's the thing. Let me give you an answer why. A lot of the stuff people I love to talk to are fighters. And they always talk about PEDs and steroids as cheating. Look, I understand, but...
I think it's pretty common in the fighting industry, though, hey? But it's just very quiet.
It's so quiet.
Yeah.
So quiet. Like, I've had fighters come to me...
Yeah.
And they're like, every day they feel like it's a battle not to jump on it because they keep seeing, and they keep comparing themselves, but they keep seeing all these other fighters.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's got to be on something.
Yeah.
He's doing this. He looks like that. You can't do that naturally. And I actually agree with him.
I do. I think anyone who thinks that anyone at the highest level of their sport, I do not care what sport it is taking something.
Except figure ice. Was it when they did the doping of the Russians? I think it was the figure skaters, the only ones who were not doping, because that was the only sport where it doesn't help you at all. That makes sense. So
but I think in every sport, you know, like everyone at the top of the NBA, like everyone at the top of football, like whatever it is, like I promise you that, you know, like they're using something. Like it's performance enhancing for a reason.
100%. But here's the thing: I want it to be accepted, because if you really, really want to. Let them. I mean, they're there for your entertainment. Look, if it brings them more money, if it brings them more status, if it allows them to have longevity, like fucking LeBron's, how old is he? He's in
his 40s now.
He's in his 40s.
And his, like, if you look at his stats from 10 years ago, like, they're not that much different. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, do you know why? Like, he's a freak, don't get me wrong, but, like, do you know why? You know? And I'm not saying that's purely the reason, but... I mean, he's still on top of his game, and he doesn't really have much signs of slowing down. Yeah,
and I just feel like it's the social. I don't know if it's the social attitude, but also like a lot of sometimes it's a bit of an ego thing. But where I'm going with this, the reason why I want it to be more and more accepted in society, because I feel like now more than ever people are skeptical. Like, there's a reason why Derek from More Plates, More Dates is becoming like...
He's a brilliant like source of information.
100%. Yeah. 100% agree.
It's very like, it's great for like free information, and there's not a lot out there. You know, there's a lot of forums and stuff that are really, really poor. You know, a lot of like people giving their personal experiences, but like someone like him who actually has proper research on it. There's a lot of people that I follow and get a lot of research on it. Like it is out there. You just have to find the right sources.
Yeah, correct. And the main thing is what I care the most about is transparency.
Yep.
Because I feel also now people are heading more and more towards honest. Now, we don't have to say too many, obviously, big names, obviously, on this podcast, because we don't want to shame anyone.
Yeah.
But I want to give like a hats off, a tip to hat to the people who do admit it. Like another one, his name's I always can't have trouble pronouncing his last name.
I know who you mean, though.
The South African chap.
Yeah.
he's so open about it,
Yeah.
and he's like one of the biggest like social media megastars. And I feel like that people are now rewarding honesty.
Yeah.
Do you see those people on social media who are like sourced to the fucking girls and say, oh, "No, man, I'm all natural," and then they can bleed their own bullshit.
Yeah.
And then that's where I feel like I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to be honest, and if you admit it and you come clean about it, you will obviously face a backlash because you've been lying, but the truth will eventually come out.
Yeah, exactly. Like one way or another. I do think a lot of these people need to be honest about it. I think at the core of bodybuilding now, in competitive bodybuilding, I'm not sure about the social media side of it where, you know, you just have the fitness industry, let's say, but I know inside in the competitive bodybuilding side, it's a lot more open about now. I feel like if you asked the competitive bodybuilders 10 years ago, they would have probably denied it. Like even open guys, you know, they probably would have denied it, you know, till the cows come home. But I know these days that everyone's a lot more open about it and they'll actually chat about it. Like there's a good podcast, the Real Bodybuilding podcast by like Fuad Abiyad, like, and him and like a few other pros, like they'll chat shit about it, you know, they'll answer questions about it and just be super honest, because at the end of the day, if they're not honest about it, and they're lying, and then these kids that are watching and get their information off, you know, like Jerry off the fucking Reddit, like they're probably going to hurt themselves. You know what I mean? Like it's like, but if you're taking in actual information from credible sources that actually know what they're talking about, then I see that as doing more good than them getting more, you know, just shitty information or listening to, you know, someone at the gym that just takes shit. You know what I mean?
That's actually the main thing as well, because I've always said to myself, look, I would love it more than anything for the science to get better for them.
Yeah.
Like, if we get more funding into this kind of stuff, who knows where this sort of stuff can lean into. Like, there's a really good documentary I remember I watched on Netflix called Bigger, Stronger, Faster. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
By the Bell.
Mark Bell's brother did it.
That's it. Yes. How good that fucking documentary is, and the whole science behind like steroids.
Yeah.
And how over time they could actually be used for medical purposes as well. Like before then, I had no idea they were used to treat AIDS patients.
A lot of them are used for actual like medicinal purposes in hospitals and stuff. And
how awesome would it be if we could actually provide? It's not saying I want like 18 or 17 or 16-year-olds jumping on this stuff.
And they are around.
They are around. But if they had that option, when they have that option, and it could be a lot more safer for them, and they have all this education and they understand properly what they're going into, it could be a lot better.
I agree.
So what's like, if you don't mind me asking, have you used or anything? Or
of course. Yeah. So for me, like it's one of them things where it's just like it's conducive to the goal, right?
Fantastic.
Like that's where it is for me. And like there's a lot of sites for me where I was like, it was very important. It's very important for me that anything I do, anything that I, you know, whether it's something in nutrition or something in training that I am doing myself, I want to learn as much as I possibly can about it, right? I don't want to do anything that I don't understand. I don't, like, why, like, and you know, there's plenty that do. It's just like a coach, you know, prescribes something to a client is do X, Y, Z. They're just going to do it. You know what I mean? Like without any thought behind it, there's, but my coach said to do it. Yeah, but why did your coach say, did you ask them why? Did you ask them reasonings why? And I think we said this on the podcast last time, where I don't think anything is, for most part, within reason. I don't think anything you give to a client, you know, like if you give an exercise to a client and they say why, if you can give a reasoning behind it, and I know drugs are different than exercise, but like give an exercise to a client and they say why, if you can answer it, then there's a valid reasoning behind that. But if you can't answer why you've given that, like you prescribed that to a client, then it's why are you giving that to the client? Do you know what I mean? Like there has to be an actual valid reasoning behind it. And for me, like it's, I wanted to make sure that anything that I'm doing and anything that I am doing nutritionally or in terms of PDs or in terms of training, that I know and understand what's happening, you know what I mean? And so a lot of sites like More Plates, More Days, there's Train by JP, there's J3 University by John Jewett as well. Like there's so many different websites. Yes, some of them you have to pay for. Like that just is what it is. You have to pay to do a nutrition course. You're going to have to pay for these things. Like, you know, a lot of it you can get for free. Don't get me wrong. There's so much free information out there, but sometimes you're just going to have to pay for stuff. Like that is what it is. And it's the same as anything in life, unfortunately or fortunately. But there's so much information out there that you can learn so much from. But obviously that's why I have a coach as well.
Yeah. So when you started taking, when you went on your first cycle, what was like the immediate, what was it like the immediate results of it? Did you feel like it was was it immediate or was it a little bit gradual over time?
It was probably pretty gradual over time. Mine was a less than ideal situation. But yeah, I put on 10 kilos in like my first cycle, but I was pretty fat. I was a pretty chunky boy. It was like during that original lockdown. So I was like, smashing Nando's every day, training at my house with like, very minimal equipment, but like I made some good progress, but like there was after the cycle, there was no, information on how to handle that. So, I didn't use it again until the start of the first prep I did. And I think in that prep, I actually lost like 4 kilos, but the body composition was like so fucking different. I'll send you the photo after. Okay. Like it's crazy. Like I'm pretty sure I lost like 4 kilos, but the body composition was just like insanely different. And I think that's because my body was obviously like not used to it and responded really crazy to it. But yeah.
Wow. Did you have to go through any kind of like cycle like leading up to it, or
in terms of
like were you taking anything like leading up to, or do
the comp?
Yeah, the comp. Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So the IFBB is untested.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah.
Is there, I know it's a weird thing, but is there anything that they can't take that's illegal?
No.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, there's stuff that's frowned upon, but like synthol, like oil site injections.
Oh, yes.
That's a different thing.
Yes.
I don't know of many amateurs that are using that. So
yeah, that's
interesting.
I feel like that's the most frowned upon in general. Like,
yeah, I think so. But I think it's more the look that it creates. It's not the fact of using it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are using it and you can't even tell, but I feel like some people go probably a bit overboard with it. And then it's just when it creates a bit of an odd look, obviously, it's when it, creates a bit of conversation.
Yeah. Like, do you ever have like those backstage conversations with them? Like, hey man, what did you do? Like, was there any chat backstage?
Not of that kind of stuff. No.
Really?
It's very just like, it is what it is. Yeah, okay. It's very like, I feel like once you start of, you kind of get into the bodybuilding world, it's very much, it just is what it is. Like, you don't really talk about it. It's just another thing that you do. It's just a part of it. Like, it's just
integrated with you. Yeah. Fantastic.
It is what it is. Like, and I'm always quite open about it and stuff. I don't really have any issue talking about it. I know a lot of people that, I found that I think the more open that you are with someone about it, they'll probably be the more open with you about it, because they're like, oh, I can trust you, kind of thing. Yeah. Which is like great, and I've had like a lot of good conversations with a lot of people about it. So,
so once you started and all that, in terms of like the education, what's your advice then to people? I know because I know we're young and all that, but what's your advice to people who want to get onto that sort of stuff?
Don't do it.
No, really?
I think so.
Really?
I think if you don't have an immediate goal in mind and you just want to do it for the sake of it, then I don't think anyone should do it.
Fair point. All right. May as well hold up there. I like that. That's a smart way to go.
It's true though, right? Like, sorry, I know you want to, but it's just one of them things, right? Where if you don't have an immediate goal in mind and you're not sure, or you just want to use it for the gym or for the summer, like it can be a lifelong decision. For some people, it might not be, but for some people, it is going to be like, that's going to shut down their shit forever. Like, you need to be aware and be able to be prepared to make that decision.
And I'll finish it with, if you know what you want in your heart so much and you feel so aligned with it, then I would say 100% go for it.
Yeah.
But it's just not one of those things I feel like you should be half-assing.
No.
And that's why I've always told myself.
Everything has to be on point.
Exactly. And that's why I say to myself when I hear about those 17, 18-year-olds, I'm like, mate, you don't really understand. When I was 18-year-old, I was a fuckwit. Yeah. 25-year-old, 24-year-old, but he's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But that's the main thing, because that's why I always say you don't know really, truly what you want at that age. No. Because you never know what's going to happen in the next few years. But once you get a little more mature and you feel like you've been training for a while, and you feel like you really, really want to pursue this,
consider it and speak to someone that is actually going to have you and help you and have your best interests in heart.
Don't fucking lie to me. Oh, that's the main thing I tell people. Don't lie. Just don't lie. All right. Awesome. So that'll wrap it up just right there. Josh, thank you very much for coming back, man.
Thanks for having me again.
Really appreciate that. Guys, you can follow Josh on Instagram at Josh Birch.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Josh and Birch.
Yeah. Good. And also your coaching platform is currently taking on... Who are you working with, sorry?
Team Goebel. So Scott Goebel is the head coach behind that team. I'm working under that brand now. So link in my bio, or just go to the Team Goebel page on Instagram.
Fantastic. Now, you're looking for clients, anyone like male or female, or do you have a specific niche now?
Absolutely anyone. I'm taking on quite a few competitors at the moment, so anyone around there.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's brilliant. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening to the Last Set podcast. If you would like, please subscribe. And of course, if you want to become a Patreon of the podcast, link is in the description. Josh, thank you very much, brother. Thanks, and I wish you all the best for the rest of 2022 and into 2023. Man. You get that fucking mass, and 2024 is your year. All right, guys. That is game.